What's up everybody, it's Kenjack and I'm here to tell you what to look out for on streaming in the month of May. Now this is going to include movies that are both coming to streaming and movies that are leaving streaming so that you have a chance to watch them before they're gone. We'll segment everything out into the streaming services starting out with Netflix, and the movie I want you to watch is Layer Cake, coming to Netflix on May 13th. It's a crime comedy-ish movie from Matthew Vaughn, who's a very notable producer. You may have watched some of the movies he's produced with Guy Ritchie, such as Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He's also directed before in Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class. I think Layer Cake is up there with just about any of the regular Guy Ritchie crime comedy movies, and I would highly recommend you watch it. It has an awesome cast. It's starring Daniel Craig. It also co-stars Tom Hardy and Michael Gambon, who you may recognize as Dumbledore, among many other things. Also Sienna Miller. It's just very well put together. I think if you like crime movies like Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, you're really going to enjoy this movie because it's smooth, sexy, and it is a little bit suspenseful. Next up is Army of the Dead, coming to Netflix on May 31st. This is a brand spanking new zombie heist thriller movie. Comes from Zack Snyder. It's his first project that we're going to see since the Snyder Cut. I don't know how it's going to be. It might not be a good movie, to be honest, but it looks different, and that is the one thing that zombie movies always need, is just something that's going to rejuvenate the genre, because it is a very, very overpopulated market. It stars Dave Bautista, Omari Hardwick, Hiroyuki Sanada, among many other people. It's a cool cast. I like the concept of having to go in and steal stuff from in the middle of a zombie outbreak, although I do not like the idea of fast or smart zombies. I mean, honestly, I would just die. I would just be like, eat me right away. I'm not even going to try to survive this. It's just too much work. And that includes scenarios like World War Z, 28 days/weeks later. Anything where there is a sprinting zombie or a smart zombie, just kill me. Just kill me right away. Something to catch on Netflix before it leaves is Miracle, which is leaving on May 31st. It's considered by a lot of people to be one of the greatest sports movies of all time, and I think a lot of people might even argue that it is the singular best sports movie of all time, and for good reason. Kurt Russell is amazing in this movie, and I love the fact that they cast hockey players to play these real life people versus trying to have actors play hockey players, just because it gave it a much more authentic and real feel to it. It's almost like the Armageddon equation of trying to get drillers to become astronauts versus making astronauts become drillers, which again, totally fine. Armageddon's amazing. Now let's move on to HBO Max with a movie that seems like it's just taken forever to get to streaming, and that's Tenet. And it might only feel that way because so many HBO Max movies are now doing simultaneous release, but the point stands. Now I think that Tenet is far from being Christopher Nolan's best work. I think he got a little bit lost in the sauce, sort of a heat check, but at the same time, still an enjoyable movie. The special effects still to this day, I don't understand how he did half the shots that he did. I think a lot of the acting performances are really good as well. I love John David Washington, Robert Pattinson. Their chemistry was really good on set as well. And it's a thinking movie. You're going to have to think your way through it for sure. Plus, if you missed this movie when it went to theaters, which I think a lot of people did, which sucks because Nolan obviously designed this movie to be viewed in a theater experience, or if you missed it when it went to VOD, you can now watch it as part of your subscription, which is always nice. Next on HBO Max is Those Who Wish Me Dead, which is coming on May 14th. It's directed and adapted by Taylor Sheridan, and that might not be a name that immediately jumps out to you, but it's a name that you probably are familiar with without knowing it. He wrote Sicario and Hell or High Water, and he also directed/wrote Wind River, all part of his Frontier trilogy, 3 amazing, astounding movies. And he also is the showrunner for Yellowstone, which if you haven't caught before is incredible. You should definitely watch that. It stars Angelina Jolie, Nicholas Hoult, Aidan Gillen, who you may remember as Littlefinger, John Bernthal, and also Tyler Perry. If you know anything about Taylor Sheridan, then you know this movie is going to be action-packed. It is going to be very grounded, probably not overdone with special effects, and it is going to be a movie that takes those neo-Western values that he loves, because this dude's a serious fucking cowboy, and apply them in a more modern sense. Obviously, in this case, being smoke jumpers. It's one of my most anticipated movies for this year, and I cannot wait to watch it. Next up for HBO Max is Anger Management, which is coming on May 1st. Anger Management is a movie that I've always enjoyed, and I honestly was kind of surprised when I found out that critics didn't enjoy it too much. I think it's like sitting in the 40s or something on Rotten Tomatoes, which is crazy to me, but it's always been a good time. I've always found it funny, and I love the chemistry of Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson. It's a funny movie that I think puts together a lot of hilarious situations, like even just the beginning where the air marshal tases him for having like a pretty normal reaction to a flight attendant. Jack Nicholson sleeping in bed naked with him. There's so many funny moments throughout this movie, and I think it deserves to be respected more. Now for what's leaving HBO Max, Mortal Kombat is going to be gone on May 24th. You have basically nothing to lose to watch this movie if you have an HBO Max subscription and you just don't have time or don't feel comfortable going to a theater. I would recommend it. I think it's entertaining. If you watch my review for the actual movie, I think if you're a fan of the game, you're really going to like the Mortal Kombat movie. But at this point, I assume if you're a fan of the game, you already watched it. Let's move on to Hulu and start with Burning, coming on May 1st. It's a Korean mystery thriller movie. It stars Steven Yeun, who you probably recognize from Walking Dead or from, he was just Oscar nominated for Minari, and he also voices Mark Grayson in one of the best superhero shows I've seen in recent memory, Invincible. I'm a big fan of psychological thriller movies, and just out of almost anyone I can remember watching, I don't know if any kept me on my toes as much as Burning did, and it really just, it's gonna fuck you up a little bit. I'll say that right now, so a little disclaimer, it's gonna fuck you up. Next is Skyfall, coming to Hulu on May 5th. Personally, it is my favorite James Bond movie ever, and I think it blends the espionage feel of James Bond with a serious drama. A lot of that has to do with Sam Mendes directing it, because he did an incredible job. Roger Deakins also on cinematography for that. Great soundtrack, great plot, seamless, well-paced, and extremely well acted too. I think Daniel Craig was at the top of his game in Skyfall. Now for what's leaving Hulu, Gone Girl will be gone on May 9th. The only thing I should really have to do is just put together the words David Fincher and thriller, and you should immediately be on board. But Ben Affleck, Rosamund Pike, an incredible duo in this movie. It's a movie that's going to absolutely infuriate you and just enthrall you at the same time. It's a must-watch in my opinion. Let's move on to Amazon Prime, starting with Aliens, which is coming on May 1st. James Cameron is personally responsible for arguably two of the best sequel movies ever made in T2 and also Aliens. I feel like it's a little bit split between people on whether they like Alien or Aliens more. Personally, I think Aliens is just a little bit better. No offense to Ridley Scott at all, because Alien was also amazing, but Aliens just takes it a little tiny step above. It took that sort of sci-fi horror vibe that the first movie had and steered it more into the action sci-fi direction. In that regard, I really do think it was perfection. The cast was amazing top to bottom. Sigourney Weaver, obviously amazing as the role of Ripley, and the special effects also hold up pretty well, considering this movie was made in 1985 or 6. It's always worth a rewatch or watching for the first time if you're crazy and haven't seen it before. Next on Amazon Prime is The French Connection, also on May 1st. This is a movie I remember my dad sitting me down to watch when I was 10 years old, and him saying oh, this is one of my favorite movies growing up. You gotta watch this. And for me, that was usually a warning sign, because I wouldn't like the movie too much, and it wouldn't hold a candle to the movies that I liked at the time, which would be Star Wars: The Phantom Menace or something like that. But The French Connection, incredible. It's a real throwback crime detective thriller movie. Stars Gene Hackman as this old hard-nosed New York City detective guy, and I really love how this plot line is put together, and as a fan of crime movies, I think this is one of my all-time favorites. Let's move to Disney Plus, and we'll start with the show. The Bad Batch is coming to Disney Plus on May 4th. The Bad Batch is obviously a spin-off of Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated series, and by the way, if you're a Star Wars fan and you haven't watched that animated series and you're oh, it's a cartoon, I'm not gonna like it. Between the periods of the original trilogy and Mandalorian, nothing in Star Wars universe compares to how good Star Wars: The Clone Wars series was. I was fortunate enough to get a screener and watch the first 2 episodes of it, and I can't say anything. I'm pretty sure there's an embargo in place, but let me just say, watch it. Next up for Disney Plus is Cruella, coming on May 28th. Now, Cruella isn't a movie I would normally be too interested in. I'm not a big 101 Dalmatians fan, and I don't really see a place where I'm I need to see more Cruella de Vil, the lady that skins dogs. There are 2 things though that turned me on to this movie, and one is that Craig Gillespie directed it, and he was the mind behind I, Tonya, which I thought was amazing, funny, it was a little bit, something I didn't really expect coming out of a biopic type movie, and also Emma Stone. I love Emma Stone. I think she could carry probably any movie she wants by herself, but there's also an awesome cast. Just looking at it, Emma Thompson, Joel Fry, Paul Walter Hauser, good friend of the pod, Kirby Howell-Baptiste, Mark Strong. Just great cast. Now, these are just a few of the movies that are coming and going from streaming in May, but I'll have a full blog breaking down all the movies worth noting anyway that are coming and going from all the major streaming platforms, and the link to that is going to be in our description right below. Make sure to use movierankings.net, the only place to find out what to stream and where to stream it, and make sure to like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. I'm Ken Jack. See you next time.